leaders inspire and motivate people.
Shake it.
An advocate for good.
Selfless service.
Make it.
Leadership.
Solve problems.
Change the world.
Movers and shakers.
Yeah, that's right. It is time for our Movers and Shakers segment, a very popular segment where we talk to young people as well as some noteworthy Australians in the studio today. And we've got the Honourable Fred Chaney, AO, Senior Australian of the Year this year. It's a great pleasure to have you in the studio. Thank you very much for coming. I suppose I would like to start to sort of have a chat to you about your journey into politics. You had a very distinguished political career spanning over 20 years, both as a senator and as a member of parliament. And your father was a minister in the Menzies government. Did you always have a goal of entering into politics?
I don't know that it was always a goal, but I guess I saw my dad's life, and after the Second World War he was very active in the RSL helping people. And then I saw him very active as a politician helping people, and I got the idea that this is a way, if you wanted to fix things, change things for the better, politics was interesting. And then I got mixed up with it when I was still a student, and I thought I'd be quite good at it. You're always attracted to things you might think you're good at.
Awesome, that's excellent. And I suppose over the last few years you've done a lot of work with reconciliation and with Indigenous people and things like that. When did you first sort of realise that was a goal or an issue that you wanted to pursue?
Well, that started when I was 14, so that was about 58 years ago.
Yeah.
And I met my first Aboriginal person when I was staying on a farm, and she was well treated. She was a servant at my housemaid, but I knew there was something not quite right, so that put me on inquiry. And then I quickly learned that Aboriginal people didn't have the vote in those days. They weren't counted in the census, they were living in reserves, they were not treated the way I expected people in Australia to be treated. So I knew that was wrong, and for the rest of my life I've been working with people trying to make those things that are wrong get fixed up.
Exactly. In your speech when you received the Senior Australian of the Year award, you mentioned the recognition campaign. Can you talk a little bit about that and why that is so important? Well,
we started out as a country in 1900 really denying the Aboriginal people. We really had an attitude, and this is reflected in the way people talked about the White Australia policy, that no person of colour could ever equal a person that was white, and Aboriginal people were dying out, and it was just awful stuff. But it was the way people thought at that time. They were very different. It was, as the High Court said later in Mabo, an age rooted in racial discrimination. Then in 1967 we knocked off some of the more objectionable aspects. At least we started counting Aboriginal people when we counted up the population, and we gave the Commonwealth power to legislate for Aboriginal people. But I suppose the important thing to note is that 90% of Australians voted for that referendum, and that's never happened before, and whether it will ever happen again I don't know, but clearly Australians wanted that to change, wanted Aboriginal people to be admitted to full equal citizenship, and that was great. But what we've got now is a constitution that's still got some racist sort of elements in it. According to Section 25, I think it is, a state government or a territory government can stop people from voting, which is on the grounds of race. Well, that's clearly nuts. And there's no recognition of the fact that Australia is a very old country, 40,000-year-old country, not a 200-year-old country. And so I tell you how Noel Pearson put it this way. He said, we started with denial of Aboriginal people, we moved to neutrality, now we want to complete the Constitution by acknowledging the reality that Aboriginal people have always been here and are a continuing part of the nation.
And if someone, a young person, say, wanted to have their say about this issue and wanted to lend their support, how may they do it? Would they visit the website?
Go to the recognised website and register as a supporter. There's hundreds of thousands of people who've done that, and we want millions, not hundreds of thousands, to carry a referendum. So I'd encourage all young people to do what I've always tried to do in my life. If you see something you think needs fixing, get in there and work with other people to fix it. And this is a chance to make our Constitution more complete and to reflect the true Australia that I love.
Exactly, and I suppose as a young person, as young people here in the studio, and we did this show as part of a sub-project of Multicultural Youth Northern Territory, and they're all about making ideas reality. It's all about having an idea to start off with and then going on with it and actually making that change yourself. How did you go about, I suppose, figuring out this issue of reconciliation and then following through with that and living by that almost?
Well, I'm a great believer in action rather than words, and I'm a great believer in doing more than just pressing a computer button as well. I mean, when I was young, I really set about work with people to change the things I thought need changing. So we wrote a submission on Aboriginal voting rights in 1961 when the Parliament was looking at it. That's when I was still a student. We went and worked with fringe dwellers who were living on the edge of Perth and did some work with them. I'm a believer in action. And as a lawyer, I saw that Aboriginal people were often denied justice, so we set up an Aboriginal legal service. And then I saw that poor people were denied justice, so we set up a shopfront law shop. So I'm a great believer in doing things with other people, not just sort of talking about it. You know, it's very easy to say, oh, you know, I'm a good person because I talk about these things. I believe you're an even better person if you do these things.
Exactly. So that's the advice from the Senior Australian of the Year, and some great advice there as well. Thank you very much, Fred, for joining us on the show. And after the break, we'll have a Territory icon, Shelley Morris. She's in the studio with us, and we'll be having a chat to her about her journey and about how she got in touch with her roots and her plans for the future as well. So that's all coming up for you here on Tectonic Youth Radio. Stay tuned, Darwin FM.